Hi there, this is Rishabh and I welcome you to the Pythonverse series. We are at video number 19, wherein we are going to talk about inheritance. So inheritance is one of the most crucial concepts in object-oriented programming. We started talking about object-oriented programming in the previous video. If you have not seen it already, I request that you go and watch it because when we talk about inheritance, it's basically deriving the states and the behaviors of a given class. So it is very important that you know what classes and objects are. And in this video, we will talk about how we can extend the functionality of a class. So inheritance, well, by definition, inheritance means acquiring all the states and behaviors of a parent class. And yeah, of the parent class, let's say. Now what it means technically, let's say there's a parent class and it must be having some state, some behaviors which are like stored in instance variables and instance methods. And whenever we create a child class, whenever we use inheritance, the child class will basically automatically inherit all those variables which are there in the parent class. It will inherit all those methods which are there in the parent class, right? So Python basically provides us the mechanism for that. So without having to change the code of the class, you can actually add more functionality to it. This is very useful. How exactly is it useful? So let's say you have a class which captures the information about, let's say, cars, because we saw that cars example in the previous video. Now, if you have written a huge code base using that car class, which is used at, let's say, thousands of places, and now if somebody comes and wants you to make some changes to that car class, it may mean that you will have to make that same change at thousands of places, which you want to avoid at any cost. And in order to make your code maintainable, it is suggested that you never make changes to a code which is already there, which is already tested, right? So what happens if you still want to make changes to a class? You cannot live without it. That is where you use inheritance. Inheritance allows you to add more to the functionality of a class, but without even touching the code base for that given class. So let's look at the syntax for class inheritance in Python. So let's say there's a child class. I have just named it child class. The child class is also called as the derived class. Let me just tell you that. So it's also called as derived class. And then there's a parent class. Parent class is the class from which we are inheriting. This is also called as the base class. Now the same constructor, everything else remains the same. So it's just that you have to pass in that class from which you want to inherit all the functionality, and everything else will remain the same. Now here are some examples of frameworks and libraries which use inheritance heavily. Now trust me, these are not the only ones, but I have just named these because I have observed inheritance being used heavily in these. So Django, Flask, NumPy, Pygame, PyQt, and there are many more. You will find inheritance in a lot of frameworks and libraries in Python. Okay, now coming to the code examples. So here we have taken the example of this animal class, wherein we have the constructor, then we have a method called as speak, and this is the method, as you can see, we are overwriting in the dog class and in the cat class, right? And there are no other methods, but I'll be sharing the code example with you like in a few seconds. There we will see that in the parent class we can have those methods also for which the definition is there. So yeah, without wasting time, let us just look at this piece of code where we have this class animal. So I have already written it. Now this is the constructor, the animal. Whenever we have to create an animal object, we just have to pass the name of the animal, right? Speak method, as you can see, it says pass, which means it is not kind of implemented. So it will be overwritten or implemented by the child classes. If I talk about this method walk, you can see that print the animal is walking now. Interesting. What this means is that every child class will have the same implementation for this walk method, as long as they are not overriding it, of course. So here is the dog, which is extending from animal. Here is the cat, which is again extending from animal. And here is horse, which is again extending from the same animal class. As you can see that all of them speak differently, but they all walk in the same fashion, right? Now I have declared some objects here. So Tommy is a dog, Tom is a cat, horse one is a horse. So I have tried to like call the speak and walk method on all the three objects. As you can see, Tommy.speak, Tommy.walk, then similarly Tom.speak, Tom.walk, horse1.speak and horse1.walk. Now let me just try to run this code. So this is, we are on video number 19th. So let me say Python video 19 and then I have inherit.py. Yeah. So the child dog says woof. The animal is walking now. All of them walking in the same way, but talking in a different way. So meow, the animal is walking now. Similarly, child horse, horse is speaking. The animal is walking now. Now let's say I want to override this method, that is walk. I want to change the way some animal walks. Well, I can easily do that by overriding this method. So I can simply say def walk self and I can say print horse walks differently. As simple as that. So I can override any of the parents' method in the child class. Now let me just try to run this again. Now let's see what happens. Now you can see the animal is walking now, the animal is walking now, but horse walks differently. So what this means is that you can actually override the functions which are defined in the parent in the child classes, and all the functionality otherwise from the parent is extended or is available in the child. So this is what inheritance in Python looks like. I hope you are having a better understanding, but at the same time I would like to suggest that you practice with more examples. Just think about more scenarios where you think inheritance can be very good. So for example, you can think of animals, as we have done in this specific video. You can think about cars, you can think about your office, you can think about the planet, the country, the solar system, and you will realize that there is a whole lot of scope for inheritance when we are writing code. And you will realize that whenever we are doing LLD or the low level design while solving any new problems, inheritance may play an important role there. So it's good to know inheritance, and it really helps with the low level design of objects. Cool. So coming to the summary, well, yes, inheritance is a powerful concept for sure in OOPS, which makes code easily reusable and maintainable also. And yeah, I can correct the mistakes also. Reusable and reusable amongst many child classes, and it makes code maintainable also. We will see much more examples of inheritance in the future videos. But this is it for this video. I really hope you liked watching the content of this video. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.